Ja, guten Abend und herzlich willkommen zum vierten Musikalischen Online Salon 22. Wir haben Arturas Bumšteinas zum Gast, dem ich im Rahmen des Salons einen Kompositionsauftrag geben konnte. Wie immer spiele ich am Anfang ein Stück aus, also einen Abschnitt aus Salon, dann erzählt er was und dann ist die Diskussion offen. Und zum Schluss spiele ich die Uraufführung. Die Veranstaltung heute findet im Prinzip auf Englisch statt. Wenn aber jemand eine Frage auf Deutsch stellen möchte, dann bin ich gerne bereit, die Übersetzung in beide Richtungen zu machen. Hello, good evening. Welcome to the fourth Musikalischer Online Salon of this year. Our guest is Arturas Bumšteinas from Lithuania. I was in the great situation to give two commissions for pieces this year, and one of these two pieces is his, that I will premiere tonight. I play an excerpt in the beginning, then he's going to talk about his composing and about the piece. Then the discussion is open for everyone, and in the end I'll play the premiere of the whole piece. For everyone who's on the YouTube channel watching the live stream, I wrote the link in the chat, so if you want to come, even just later to just ask a question, don't hesitate to do that. Just be aware of the fact that there's a time shift between the conference and the Zoom, but that's okay. Yeah, so I'll start. The piece is 17 minutes long. It has basically two parts, and the first part is divided into part A and part D, and I'm gonna play the second half of this first part at the beginning. It will be about 3 minutes. Arturas, you go. Tell us about you, about the piece, whatever you want.
So here is Jokubas. My son is also in the audience. And the piece, right, it's a very recent one. It's a very recent, which I wrote just a month ago, or to be more precise, during the last month, together with your help, Matthias. The way how I work is that I always take some kind of, I prefer initial scheme, like we can call it a score, let's say. I prepare a score, a schematic version of a score, which later, together with the musician, I usually develop into a final piece, which is also the more time you are given until the performance, the more changes, the more processes that schematic score will overgo. And in our case, we had like 4 rehearsals, 4 meetings. So during those 4 meetings, we went quite far from the initial score. And for the initial starting point, I took Lithuanian traditional multiphonic song genre called sutartinės, which means Lithuanian. It comes from the word sutarti, means to agree or like together and come to consensus. And this form, this musical form, I don't know how much it is known in Germany, but Matthias, for example, was surprised to hear it about first time ever. And very often when I tell people about this form, people are so surprised, like, wow, in the middle of Europe, you have such a archaic music making. Like, the closest similar musical forms could be found in maybe Balkans or Finland, north of Finland, Sami folklore. It would have the similar, this very like archaic structures. And why it interests me so much? I was studying sutartinės at a Lithuanian Music Academy 20 years ago exactly. And back when I had a really interesting teacher who came up with a completely new way how to study and analyze sutartinės. And before that, the traditional musicology would look at sutartinės as a kind of a undeveloped minor or undeveloped tonality. And at the archaic music through the perspective of a classical music, Western musical tradition is a very tricky thing. I mean, it is connected because it's a like all music history you can see as a one thread, but in order to understand the music from say 2000 years ago, you have to understand the anthropological context from which the music is coming. And this teacher, he with very interesting explanations for the let's say the processes that happen in sutartinės. And I will tell you a little bit about the processes. It's very simple stuff. It's very basic stuff. Where you go to the uninhabited forests or islands or mountains, some place that has been for centuries separated from the major Western civilization, you have the same principles of, say, principles of music making. There's very similar things to sutartines, you could say, are in Cameroon. Bachmi's music also shares some structural aspects of sutartines. So what is sutartines? Sutartine is a binary form of music where you have always a interplay of two elements. As my teacher in music academy, he invented this way of analyzing of sutartines by dividing them in certain types. Like one of the types is when those two elements, they are surrounding each other. Yes, they're surrounding each other. Let's say one element consists of a minor third, and there is another element that consists of minor third, but one tone higher. And those, when they come together, they start like rubbing each other through this dissonant. Birute, I think you have to turn off the microphone. Yes, thank you. So the idea is the so-called primitive mentality of the hunter-gatherer society that would meet in the forest, and they would like two groups of hunters-gatherers would have this kind of communication by each of them having their own like a signature motive, which would be like a very simple formula. Say a formula of 2 or 3 notes, usually consonant in horizont. But then the other group, they would have a different melody, which would be also consonant, but on purpose it would be higher or lowered in order for the two groups, for those two like signature sounds, to have this meeting point within the or major second. So there would be this rubbing, like the moment of tension, or I would call it a release, some kind of release of a conflict. Like instead of fighting each other, they would stand up or sit down in front of each other and would have this conflict like sublimated into the expression of intensity of a dissonance, which I think was very important for the and very, very different for the, how to call it, say primitive societies, because now I will fantasize a little bit. I imagine the like you have a vision of the most ancient sound is like a hum of a perfect interval that sounds good, it feels like resonance which feedbacks into your body. But I noticed while traveling around Europe that these kind of consonant, perfect fifth, perfect fourth experiences, they are mostly common to the, I don't know how it's called, you have them also in Germany near the North Sea, like the dolmens or the little constructions made of stones that you would go inside and you would sing, vocalize resonant harmonies, and in this way the small chamber, stone room, it would amplify it, and you would have this enhanced experience, which also would be combined with a small light going out through a small hole, a sunlight, and you would have a, let's say, incense burning, and that perfect intervals would create a very even sound waves that would visibly move the smoke in the air. So you can achieve that easier. You have perfect octave, perfect fifth. You have this visual, even the visual experience of the vibration, of the harmonic relationship. So coming back to the sutartinės, sutartinė is basically, to put it short, is the art of avoiding three things happening simultaneously. Is you have 20 singers. No, usually in sutartinės you have 4, 5 singers, but you have a group of singers and they all sing in turns and together, but the main rule is how to avoid the three melodies at the same time. So it would be a game like a puzzle. So when one joins, another joins. When the third joins in, the first one is silent. Then they would exchange in turns, so that you would never have three melodies coming on each other. And basically, this very ancient binary principle of rubbing through the dissonance, that the most dissonant intervals, you would have this throughout all the history of documentation of sutartinės, which started being documented only in 19th century. But the way there's one theory of the origin of this kind of a rubbing of the dissonance, is that it all started from the long horns. They would take a long wooden horn and they would blow natural harmonics, and the horns would be a little bit different length. So they would have the little bit differences in natural harmonic series. And the way it sounds, how you play those two different size horns, I can later share some links to audio with you if you're interested. It gives this very limited melodical scale. You just have few steps you can go. So this went like into the vocal expression, because before that it was used for the villages or the communities to communicate through the long distance. Each village would have their own formula, repetitive formula. It's basically just few notes on one horn, the same rhythm, and you have another few notes repeating on another horn. So you would have this tiny repetitive structures, and each village would have a different one. So they would play them through the fields. Lithuania doesn't have mountains. Lithuania is very flat land. They're just more hilly areas, some places. So they would go on the hill and would play it to another village, or would sound through the fields. So there are three types in general, three types of sutartinės. The first one, the most common one, is trejinė. It means the one that is performed by 3 people, but it can be performed by any group of people, because it's like a estafette. I don't know if you have this word, estafette, right? You know this word? Like a canon, basically. The melody consists of 2 parts, 2 equal parts, and you would have first part sounding like And then the second part would go a little bit higher. And then when the second part starts, second singer starts singing the first part. And then he goes to the second part, the third singer joins in. And it goes on like a round. In England, they call them rounds, right?
Yeah.
A canon. It's very simple, but still, you have the most important thing is the meeting of two consonant cells that meet through the dissonance. The most important element in Sutartines is the friction of the dissonance. And then the second type, sorry?
Well, it would be good if you go on with these three types, but then come a bit closer to your piece.
Okay. Yes. So
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
so for Matthias, I wrote quite traditionally sounding Sutartines, and he recorded them in a multi-track, and then I made a variations of the Sutartines. I wrote them down on paper, and Matthias recorded them, and I decided to use them as a tape part for his solo. And then we rehearsed with this idea, and it didn't sound good for me because it was too somehow repetitive. Because in general, I even though I'm very interested in Sutartines and I currently base all my on it, I try to avoid the most important aspects of Sutartines is the repetitiveness. So I decided that it doesn't sound like my music. It's not my cup of tea, that kind of very, pulsing, repetitive thing. So I decided to play around a little bit with the recordings that Matthias did with the on cello of the rehearsal, where it was only him playing, listening to the Sutartines on headphones. So I took those recordings and made them into a tape part, more harmonic and freed of any metronomic, because the previous version was very metronomic, and I prefer to have a more free space where you have only what is left from Sutartines is the harmonies, because every Sutartine, it consists of 3-4 notes, the melody, and another melody is also 3-4 notes, and all kinds of combinations between those 3-4 notes. You have the like a harmonic series then. So all the piece is made out of the variations on the harmonic combinations of Sutartines. And Matthias is what he will be playing live is also based on the same idea of harmonical analysis of Sutartines, which is very simple harmony, simple melodies. But when it's multi-layered with the tape part, which comes from another Sutartine, then the clash of these two things, it gives a quite I think it gives a quite a beautiful result. Unfortunately, the zoom quality is not so grateful. The zoom sound quality is not so grateful for experiencing the solo cello and the tape part simultaneously, because the zoom is created for speech and whatever is in the background is being filtered. I guess the zoom algorithm, it takes Matthias cello sound as a signal, and the tape part coming from the speakers takes it as a noise, and thus you have a very strange result, which maybe is also interesting. Like, you take this very ancient musical form and you bring it to the era of digital technologies, and you have this glitchy computerized electronic music, maybe.
well, but also I will make when I play the premiere I will make a recording with a pre-Zoom signal and then put it on YouTube later on. So there's a chance to listen to a better version of it.
Great.
Great. Okay, thank you so far, Arturas. Robert, you want to ask?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I just have a little question for the composer, and I've heard to the the version that you put on YouTube. And I found it quite interesting, and I was wondering if the tape, if you somehow elaborated the recordings on tape, or if you just layered up the recordings that Matthias did for you, and just by layering up these materials, it came this result.
There are two parts of this. The first part consists of 3 subparts. So in those subparts, you will hear Matthias playing only harmonies. The tape part, no suites as an authentic form, let's say rhythm and melody and harmony. So you would hear only the harmonical parameter of Sutartines. While live he would be playing, well, I don't want to spoil, but then the last part before the second part, the end of the first part, is what Matthias just played as a teaser in the beginning, which consists of, again, the harmony of Sutartines, but being put in motion already. It's already in motion. And then in the end, the second, the longest part, you will hear in a tape part a very similar music to Sutartines we wrote. I have my own Sutartines, and I wanted it to sound very similar to the original, but you will hear it through the loudspeaker coming to the microphone, being mangled by the Zoom algorithm, and I don't think that it will be as close to original Sutartines as don't imagine that this is the real Sutartine. It is only like a glimpse, a shadow of it. Yes, and there was elaboration of the tape part every time we met. Every time we met, we changed and changed and changed until I decided to keep it really, really minimal and just to leave the bones of it all.
But especially in that second part, my sound is processed on the tape, isn't it?
A little bit, very little.
Some flanger or so.
No, it's like on a cassette you have this little flutter, like a detune.
Yeah.
So I put a little bit of this effect, just like I'm very fond of this very old ethnomusicologist field recordings of folk music, which also has this. They were done on tape, mono, or even wax cylinder. So it would have this very unequal sound. So I wanted to get this feeling to the tape part.
Okay. Thank you very much. And thank you for letting me discover this music. I was quite fascinated from it, and as I watched the link that you put on the video. So if you wanna give us some more links, I'll be happy.
Yes, I will put them in the chat option.
Yeah. And I will then put them from the Zoom chat to the YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
Well, no, I won't put them in the chat, but I will put them in the YouTube description later on. What I really liked, what happened during our work, when in that preview video, I showed I played the beginning in two different versions, and In January, Arturas sent me I can't remember, something like 12 pages of cello part, and I recorded all that, and it had to be precise with the metronome, and I did that, and that in the first version of the piece, that was the background, and I was playing live a foreground to that background. And then after I sent him the recording of the background and he sent me the tape, I made made a recording of this foreground, this live piece, and then Arturas decided that everything that was the old tape is cut out, but what I played was thought as the live part becomes the new tape. So it's just like different layers also of remembering phases of the composing that now consists the piece now consists of. And this is, there are some things that really vanished, but in a certain way, you still can remember them, and traces of these things that had been cut out are still in the piece.
I think that is good to imagine when we will listen to the performance. It's good to imagine what is the space where this music would sound good, would fit. What is the space with its acoustical conditions? For me, it would be, I always, when we were rehearsing, imagining a church, but not any church, but a wooden church that has a very particular resonance. And I imagine that this piece could be played in this echoic space, but not with a long decay.
Yeah.
Both tape and solo cello. And I imagine you could be sitting really close to the audience because you will be playing really quiet things, and the tape will be played from the organ balcony.
Yeah.
So it would be, the tape part is like an organ part, and you are the solist from the front. That's my vision of how I would like to hear this piece someday in the future.
Yeah. Well, we should go for that. But for tonight, I mean, we all just have stereo speakers, so it doesn't make much difference if you have the loudspeakers here or somewhere else. It's just
no, it's completely, it is understandable. This is the Salon where you have a nice home, and I feel like I'm sitting there with you right now while I'm in a hot Berlin, actually, but it's has a good comfortable feeling.
this is I mean, the last salon was with a guest from Germany who lives in Munich and Chemnitz, but for the salon he was in Poland on holidays. So he joined us from Poland. You are from Lithuania. We had most of the rehearsals between Germany and Lithuania. Now you're in Berlin. That's one of the great advantages of Salon instead of a wooden church, that we just can meet from where we are. Also ecological. No traveling needed.
So the surrounds, I will just said what I didn't say. Sorry, maybe I interrupted you. The surrounds is the idea of some music being surrounded by other music. It comes from the forest people's practices of hunters and gatherers. When two groups meet and they can oust each other, push out, one group pushes out, or one group surrounds other, or there is the third possibility is to coincide, and that's when two groups they come together and they sing the same melody. That's how monophonic music actually was born. But before that, we as an ancient human, we would have only the binary forms that would surround or oust or coincide. So that's the explanation of the title of the piece.
Yeah.
Surrounds.
Would you say it's a typical piece for you?
It's every piece I write is like I forget everything I did before, and I write like the first piece. Every piece I do is the first piece, and thus I have probably will never arrive to do some kind of self-identity, a fully formed self-identity, because I'm always in search for something new, for something just looking for some kind of creative adventures, I guess. And I'm very interested in many different things, many different musical traditions and themes and topics, and I see there's no end for the search of my creative identity. Maybe this search of identity is my identity. So it's not a typical piece for me, no.
Okay, because there are no typical pieces.
No typical, I don't have any typical pieces.
Okay, it's a pity that Agnes just left now, because she's the one I talked about who cared about the Tartines before. Well, anyway, are there more questions concerning the piece, the way we worked on it, or whatsoever?
Not so far.
Not so far.
Maybe after.
Okay, so that was my idea. If there are no questions now, I would play the piece, and we still have time to talk about the piece afterwards. So I just have to change some things. I would ask you to turn off your microphone
Yes.
playing, because I'm going to change the sound, and then everything that's coming has an echo. I'm going to make myself big, and I'm going to record that. So this is Surrounds by Arturas Bumšteinas.
Thank you.
Thank you for the piece.
Thank you.
Sounded like 3 pieces.
Why you mean that?
Uh, uh, we talked about 2 parts in the beginning, but actually now I clearly saw that this is a free little free miniatures.
I
like
think
the
that
sorry.
hearing the third part, it was, I mean, the reference that it makes to the beginning made me understand it as a whole. Quite, I mean, I didn't perceive it. I didn't perceive it as three different pieces in the same style. I heard it like three clear sections, maybe three movements, but the unity, it was for me it was very clear to perceive.
But when you say that the first and the last connected, in what way, may I ask?
Well, the technical, how do you say, the spizzicato with the left hand, the inch, which is at the very beginning of the piece.
Yes.
Yeah, I did it wrong, and then in the third part, it's it comes again at the very beginning, but it's in the recording. What did they?
The recording, in the end, you had sutartines. You could hear them quite. Yeah, you could say it's a like a sutartine in a crippled mirror or something. But now I thought that the beginning tapping on the strings should be much more quiet, because I got in the mood for the first time. I really got in the mood of the piece, and I thought that it is the cello is immediately in your face, immediately so present, and I was thinking that it maybe if you play it the second time somewhere, so the first tapping part should be really quiet, really minimal, and then it gets a bit louder with the sul ponticello arpeggio, and then the last part, then you play present sound, a calm, soft, but still a present sound. I think the solo cello should like blossom through from the little tapping and scratching, really minimal, later the very gentle piano, sul ponticello, and then like a mezzo piano playing and canto at the same time. But yes, I'm very happy about the result. It's the only pity thing is that Birute, my friend who came to listen, she left because she said the sound is disappearing constantly, and she's a pianist, and she tries to have some rehearsals with singers on Zoom, and she says that is absolutely impossible. You cannot use Zoom for music. You cannot use Zoom for music.
Well, especially you can't for rehearsals, because you can't synchronize.
Yes, and the sound, I don't know.
Just for fun, we should try that. Could try that again. I count 1, 2, 3, and on 3 we are all clapping. All the 3 are. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I have only one hand, but I will clap with the. Okay. I will close it.
Yeah. You have one of your hands is missing. Okay, so 1, 2, 3. This is synchronization in Zoom.
No, it's actually quite synchronic. It's quite synchronic, no?
No, you were much.
No,
Let's do it one more time. Maybe I think I didn't understand when do we clap.
So 1, 2, and on 3 we clap.
On 3, okay.
On 3. 1,
yeah.
2, 3.
Perfect. It's perfect. I mean, but you know what? Roberto is in Italy, and we are both in Germany.
Berlin too.
No,
In Berlin?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
But watch the YouTube video. You're much later than me. It was great for you, Arturas.
Yes.
But not for the rest of us.
So you saw that.
Late, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought we were all in sync, only Roberta was a little bit late.
No.
Ah, interesting.
For you, for Roberta, for you, me and you were sync. And was late.
No, for me, I was in sync with you,
Yeah.
but Arturas was a bit late, like 1 second.
Yeah, and for me, I was perfectly synchronized to myself. But you both were late. Anyway, unfortunately, I mean, everything is technical, a bit demanding, and I pressed the wrong key, so I didn't record this. But I promise I make a recording with video tomorrow to put it on YouTube with a better sound.
So maybe you can take in mind my remarks that I said about the volume progression.
Yeah, I'll try to. But
Okay.
Still, this apart from all the technical issues, when I watched my preview video, I thought it's great, this beginning of the piece, because independent of if I do it loud or not, it has this feeling of, oh, the cellist is searching the pitch.
Yeah, very good.
It did not really start.
Yeah, but I want that very much, very much.
Yeah.
That's what inspired me, because you were doing it for yourself, and I thought, wow, that's the sound I need.
It's great, and I thought when I saw the video and myself doing it, I thought, oh, it really works. You have this informal start of the piece where you can't tell, is he still preparing, or is it already the piece itself?
Yes.
Yes, and that's one thing that speaks for this kind of online concert, because it has, I mean, the possibility to play such with this technique. Of course, with a microphone and a camera, it makes another effect than in a concert, a theater, because then it's suddenly you have to play it differently. You cannot play too, how do you say it, too light, because otherwise nobody will hear it, and it sounds too. But then at home, in an online concert, you can really be fragile with this kind of articulation, and it doesn't lose anything, but it sounds much more intimate.
Yeah, I think you're right. If I would play it in a huge hall, I would have to show I'm playing. And here I don't have to do that. I can just play my part, and you can see it, you can hear it, and make out of it what you want.
Nice.
Okay, so I would just say a few last words for this salon, and then we can go on talking or not. Yeah. So this was the famous Surround premiere salon. Thanks for attending to it. Thanks for watching it on YouTube. The special situation with the war in Ukraine made me plan another online salon, which will be in 2 days, on Thursday 24, with a piece by Ludmila Jurina from Kiev, Irrlicht, and I hope we meet there again. Ja, das war der Uraufführungssalon zu Arturas Bumšteinas Surrounds. War wieder sehr spannend. Ich danke allen, die da waren, und möchte noch sagen, dass wegen des Kriegs in der Ukraine ich mich ja entschlossen habe, einen zusätzlichen Online-Salon zu machen, der schon übermorgen am Donnerstag, den 24. März stattfindet, mit Irrlicht von Ludmila Jurina aus Kiew.